He was so confused to what was going on. And girls, that's what happens with your man most of the time when you're acting up. Like, he's confused. Like, is this a dog with rabies? Like, what happened?
Especially when you know he's not doing anything wrong. Because when he's fucking up and then you're freaking out, he's obviously going to be like, ugh.
Let's get this started.
Yeah, I'm ready to rock and roll, man.
What else she tell you? What else she tell you?
You told me you it was that consultation essentially. I mean, you paid a considerable amount for that, right? I mean,
yeah, it was $40,000.
How long was it? How long was the conversation?
It was a 9-day training.
Okay, 9 days.
So it was 9 days of sort of just going back to move forward.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is, like, we go through things in our lives and we don't recognize that we're still living out that story in the subconscious. So I was trying to make sense of, like, okay, why do I self-sabotage in relationships? Why do I run away? Why is everyone replaceable? Like, where does the story come from? Yeah. So with my mentor, we just really went back, and, you know, a lot of what I do with my current clients is like redefining the story that you lived. Because sometimes we give our stories meaning from one perspective, like from, okay, Veronica in 2018 went through this and this is how she interpreted it. But now in 2022, you could maybe look back and now you have a more clear vision and you have a new mindset. And now you could look back at that story and you define it a little bit differently. So now that story, because you changed the way you viewed
the whole narrative almost,
it no longer defines you.
And the impact that it's created with 2018 interpretation now starts to make sense, and you're like, 2022 is, I'm different now that I understand it.
But it's like, but you also get to understand yourself then,
right.
Which I always tell people, like, you got to give yourself grace through everything, because if you don't, then you look at yourself as a failure. You know, so before I built this beautiful relationship with my boyfriend, which is still a work in progress, like sometimes I do stupid shit, but I have the awareness, you know, because I'm very just always trying to be aware, right? So then you could rewrite your wrongs. But for example, when I look at myself, for example, in college, my relationship with my college sweetheart, like, I was just a bitch, and it wasn't intentionally.
Love it.
You know, like it was not intentionally. I just didn't know better. And I had this mindset of, like, how do I say this in English? In Spanish, it's like una niña caprichosa.
Man, I'm not even sure how to, I feel like they use it all the time and I'm not sure.
Like a very just like spoiled girl that thinks that it's her way or the highway.
Okay.
And, you know, for a long time, I would look back on that relationship and I just felt so bad for treating such a good guy, sometimes so bad. But part of my growing process was being able to look at myself and say, you were broken and, like, you had a lot of hurt, which is why sometimes you would hurt him. Because you weren't ready to be in a healthy relationship because you yourself weren't healthy. And, like, defining what healthy is like a rabbit hole in itself.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we're these humans and we're all high achieving. And I've always been a high achiever, like since elementary school, captain of the cheer squad, gifted student, like all of this. But in a heart sense, I was broken since I was little.
Yeah.
Like, I always had this perspective of, like, my mom, like, why did God give me this mom? Like, she doesn't take care of me. She doesn't love on me. So you grow up with all these complexes in your head. And now you have an idea that love should be this huge thing because you never got it, or you felt like you never got it. So when you get into relationships with this concept of someone that loves me is supposed to do all these things for me, now the expectations are too high. So you never feel fulfilled. So you're always complaining. Like, that was what I was living. It's like I had this great person, but I always felt like I needed more. So I caused a lot of harm. I mean, same with him. Like, we all had our things going on. But it's just unique when you actually look at relationships and you recognize it's not like an evil person. It's not that you're right or wrong. It's like some of us just are doing the best we can. And that's why some people need to recognize that maybe they're not meant to be in relationships yet. Like, I see some people that they go back and it's like suffering, and like their relationships last 5 months, but then they jump into another one and it's like
it feels like they're always looking for somebody else, thinking that they can be the answer.
Fill a void almost.
When you yourself have to, like, reprogram before you deliver someone else to someone else.
is that everything that happens around you is not about what's around you. It's about you. And like, let me elaborate. So for example, if you have a partner that sucks, there are people that vent about their partner that sucks, but you chose that partner, right?
Yeah.
To take it a little bit further, if your partner tells you something and it like hurts your feelings, there are two ways to go about that. You can choose to get mad, which is what most women do, because like you hurt my feelings. So now it's like, I'm mad. And now you get into a big fight. And now for 2 days, the energy's off. Or you could be vulnerable and you could look at your partner and say, hey, like what you just did just hurt me so much.
Yeah.
And this is why. And when you talk to a man with that tone, they're like, oh my God, like my baby, like, I'm so sorry. But we do it all wrong. It's like, you hurt me, so now I'm going to hurt you. And like, you live in this war zone when like, we have to recognize like our partners we're a team, right? And like, for a long time, I didn't understand that. And it was like, you against me and I'm better than you.
Yeah.
And I was always like the alpha in my relationships. And I had to recognize that you can't do that with a man.
It's tough because, you know, like it's, and you always say it's like you and me versus the problem. And especially when I was younger, it would be all the opposite ways. It's you versus me. And it was eroding the relationship to the point where it really wasn't salvageable anymore. And like, you know, you look back and you're like, man, this is something. And what you were saying earlier, it's about sometimes you have to look back and look at it, what really happened. You have to be honest with yourself. Sometimes we tell ourselves this is what happened 3 years ago. But did it really? And you have to be honest with yourself, like, and rewrite the story how it really went. Because a lot of times we tell ourselves certain things because it makes us feel better, because it helps us let go or move on. But you got to face the truth. And sometimes you were the problem. A lot of times I look back on certain situations and I realize, man, is this really how it went down? Or do I tell myself that this is what happened? And then there's a lot of times a discrepancy. You know?
And to your point, we had seen a video and I had referenced it before, that it's like arguments with your significant other, there's never a winner, you know, because maybe let's say you and I are arguing and I was right and you were wrong, right? But there's no winning. Because now you're going to feel like, man, I lost, or like, did it really need to get that for him to get his point across? And it's like, no, I didn't. Like, it shouldn't be, well, I'm right, you're wrong. It's, okay, something's not right. We need to come together to solve it together. Because I don't want you feeling like I won, or I don't want to feel like, oh, well, she won and she told me. Because then you're going to feel like shit a couple of days later, like, well, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe I shouldn't have got to that point. Because now I feel like shit. You won the argument, but now you have a partner who's feels like that. So it's almost like what you were saying, like it's reprogramming to say, well, no, this is what's kind of vulnerability. We have this issue. Let's address it together. Let's figure it out, because we both are a team against the problem. The problem's not you versus me. It's you and I against the problem.
100%.
Let's solve that problem.
Yeah.
So then together we can move forward.
Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Before we continue, we just want to say thank you for supporting us, and we hope you enjoyed the show so far.
As you know, we're growing like crazy, so we want to give you guys more content, but we're very limited on what it is that we can put on social media, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, all that good stuff. We got to battle their algorithm. So we do want to move a lot of over our content to Patreon, where we have more control to really interact with you guys and give you guys what it is that you want. So moving forward, the audio full episodes will still be available on Spotify and iTunes, but we are going to be changing things up when it comes to the video to put it on Patreon. Now, stick around to the end of the episode where we'll talk a little bit more about Patreon. You can see what it is that we're doing, but we have full control to really interact with you guys and give you guys what it is that you want. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. That being said,
Enjoy the show.
peace. So no, I like that when you said that.
And I think deciding too, like being, you can't just be in a relationship because you're bored, because that's when you open the door to like flicking the person off all the time. Like, I don't really care about you. Like, you have to be in a relationship with someone that you truly feel like could be the husband. So for me, it was like before my boyfriend and I started dating, I had a manifestation man list. And I was like, if the boxes aren't checked, we are not dating. Why? Because I dated too many guys in the past that I didn't really admire. It's like I dated them because they liked me and I was bored and we went on dates and then we ended up dating. But then I was seeing the way that they were and I was like, he's a freaking loser. Which then it's like, you don't respect your man. So anything that he does, I would just be like, ugh, like, you know, and so many people do that. It's like, you're just in these relationships because you're bored.
Or it's going well with this one guy and you're like, oh, well, I guess he's sweet. It's like, but is that what you want? Like, is that what you're looking for?
So it's like, everyone, males, females, make a manifestation woman or man list, and like very detailed, like if you were to marry someone, what kind of person do they have to be? Like I had details down to must love nature. Why? Because if I'm on a vacation, I'm going to want to go on a hike instead of a bar. So if we don't have the same goals, like we're going to have more arguments.
Or
So-
lifestyles. As you said.
lifestyles.
Yeah.
Like we got to set ourselves up for that. So for me, that's just been so important is like, you know, because once you make that decision, it's like I'm with someone that I truly value, admire, and love. And now it's easier to do the work and like show up as your best version because everything compounds. So if I were to scream at my boyfriend and call him names, like, yeah, we could get over it right now, but that's still in his subconscious.
Right.
She doesn't respect me. She doesn't value me. And I think I heard this in one of your podcasts, but it's funny that I had heard it somewhere else, or you could correct me if I'm wrong, if this has never been said, but like males need to be respected and females need to feel loved. Have you ever heard of that?
Man, we may have had a guest. I know Casey Chops came on and he was really big on when it came to gender roles, but
Yeah.
you know.
No,
it could've been-
so then maybe I thought that, but
That's fine.
But this is something my mentor taught me that I was like, oh my God. Because listen, it'll take you on this, it'll simplify what goes on in most relationships, right?
Okay.
Women want to be loved, right? It's our, and not only that, but we also have this desire to feel safe.
Yeah.
We want to be protected.
Secure.
And then guys want to be respected, right? Like that's the role of a man. Like you need to respect him. So if this is what happens, the guy doesn't show the girl love for XYZ reason. Like let's say you're very busy, so you didn't have time to show her love. But instead of communicating that to you, what she does is that she gets an attitude and she starts to disrespect you. And when she disrespects you, you're like, screw you, you're annoying.
Now I don't want to show you love.
Now I don't want to show you love.
Yeah.
So it becomes this cycle where what the woman needs, if she doesn't get, she does exactly what the man does not need. So it's like I always tell people, just when you think about your partner, if you're a female, just try to always honor him and respect him because guys need that. Like guys are very strong on the outside, but at the same time, you guys have like a very big and soft heart sometimes. And like
We show that to the right person.
Sure.
Which is why you're there in the first place. Which is why I chose you. To give you that. Not to give that to everybody.
Because
So, yeah.
you don't walk around telling everyone you better respect me, but from your females, like you want to feel safe also. And that's what respect is. It's like I don't have to be on my toes fearing that you're going to come after me. Like we're a team. This is and just communication. Communication is huge in that little cycle because if you could just communicate how you feel, like, babe, like I feel like you haven't looked at me all day.
Yeah, just so that you know, I've kind of, I feel that this has been going on. Like,
And then what does the guy say? Oh my God, I'm so busy.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Like, you know what? Let's plan for a date tomorrow just so we could be locked in. And then you find a resolution, but you have to be looking for the resolution to get it, right? It's
Yeah.
not just going to happen by acting up.
and it's also how you presented it too.
Yeah,
Because
that's what I'm
if
saying.
you would have gone with the former, where it's like, well, this, and that, the guy's gonna be like, yo, crazy, fuck off. All right, I'm fucking busy. This is the last shit I need right now. And now you still don't get the love. Rather than the way you presented, it's like, damn, baby, I'm sorry. You know, I've been working like crazy. You know, what's up? What can we do? What do you want to do? You know. But at least it's how you present it. It's how you communicate that.
Yeah, and you said it, and we've talked on the phone about it. The word I used was empathy, and you mentioned it. And again, when I say I feel this way, saying I instead of you doing this or you doing that, it's super important, and it changes the whole conversation.
Yeah.
And approaching any romantic or even just platonic relationship with vulnerability and saying, hey, this is how I feel. You know, what can we do about it? Or, you know, like, let's come together and solve this. If more people would do that, I think relationships would be simplified in such a more profound way.
And to that point, if I do present it that way and you respond in a way like you're still rude, like say, hey, I felt like this when this happened. They're like, well, you got to deal with it. Or, well, I'm sorry. That's how, whatever it may be. Now you're showing me who you are. And if that doesn't align with me and I don't like that response or this, it was like, man, I'm telling you how I really feel and you don't care. Like, now you're telling me more about you than I needed to know. Like, this is great. And now you're realizing, hey, maybe that's not the person for me. Maybe I don't want that person in my life. Whoever it may be, platonic, intimate, whatever. But I know me. And if that doesn't fit with you, peace.
Yeah, and that's something that I always do with my clients. So when I have clients that are going through relationship issues, I always tell them, okay, this is what you need to do. I need you to show up as your best version. So I need you to take on vulnerability. I need you to take on honest conversations. And if like he's going to show you, like there's going to be a reaction to that. And that's how you make your decisions, because then it becomes on it, like it becomes obvious, right? But when you are acting X, Y, like when you're acting a certain way because he's acting a certain way, now you're both just playing games and you're not being your authentic
Out of
self.
spite. Right?
Exactly. And it becomes this cycle where it makes no sense. And it's like, it'll be obvious to you when you have to leave a situation if you're being your best version and that's not being reciprocated. Is that how you say that word? Reciprocated?
Yeah.
Reciprocated, yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, sometimes I'm just like, just be your best. And then the best is going to come in line with you.
What's so frustrating? So how do you deal with when someone, like you tell them that and now I'm listening and I'm like, but I love him, but I still want to, have you ever had that? Because like they know and they still choose. Because whenever we have people vent to us or kind of ask us for advice, it's always like, oh, he's doing this, and this. And I was like, okay, how would you feel if you did that to him? Would you feel happy about it? And they're like, no, I would never. I love him. I would never. Okay, so why do you choose to accept it yourself? You know what I mean? So when you get those situations, like how do you tackle that when they're like, well, I know it's not, but I love him and I still want to try. It's been 3 years.
So I think the most important thing is to never tell someone what to do.
Right.
So you always have to guide people for them to have these breakthrough moments in their own mind. Because when you tell them what to do, now it comes from you, but it's not their mind that got them to that realization. So they might agree with you and logically they'll know that it's the right thing. But like, I believe 3 things need to be aligned for you to take true action. And that's like your mind, your heart, and your body. So if you just tell them, it's like, okay, their mind, it makes sense in their mind, but it hasn't made sense in their heart. So you just need to ask like the right questions. And sometimes it takes longer than one session. You know, it takes people time, but like what I try and do is like guide them to like, okay, what are your next steps? So if that's not okay, like what boundaries are you going to set? Like, how do we try and make this healthier? But then at the end of the day, you have to decide. And I like to bring them to the future too. So, hey, so if this continues to happen in 10 years, like how do you see your life? And like having them recognize that it's not just momentarily. Like these are habits. Like sometimes people are dating extremely toxic people and they think they're going to change.
Yeah.
But what happens if they don't change? What happens to your life as a result of what you chose? Because you have the ability to choose. And if you continue to choose this, okay, let's look at your life in 10 years. And how happy are you going to be? And then sometimes that picture alone is like, I need to do something because if I don't do something, it's going to be problematic.
Hey man, because I've had a lot of people reach out to me and they ask me for advice and I give them my feedback. And again, you made a great point because everybody has to learn on their own time. And a couple months ago, a friend of mine asked me like about a certain situation. And I'm like, I don't think this is the relationship for you. I don't see based on everything that you've told me, I don't see this heading in the right direction. And he didn't want to take it at all. We got off the phone. He told one of my other friends, man, how can you tell me this, da da da. Fast forward 4 months, they broke up. And for that same reason, everything, the relationship was dead. I knew it. But it's always easier standing from the outside. And again, I gave him the best feedback that I could give. But he had to make that own decision. And it took him 3-4 months. And to this day, he's like, man, the advice you gave me still is in the back of my mind. I wish, I would have listened sooner. And I'm like, you did what you thought was right at the moment. And so people have to learn their own. You can be a guide, you can be a chaperone, but you can't make them do what's right for them.
No, that's why I don't give advice.
But it's also rewarding as a person because just like you said, it's like when you realize that it came to you, like it made sense to you.
When it finally clicks.
And you're like now it's like that's one of those core memories type things where it's like, wow, now like it really reframed the way that I feel about myself, what I'm willing to accept with myself, because I don't want to be this person in 5-10 years. I don't want to continue doing this. So it's almost like that wake up, it sticks more when you feel like you're the one that came up with it. When it's like you were guided and you're like, wow, I see it now. I feel it.
It's crazy. And, even with my friends, sometimes, like, let's say we're on a group chat and they're venting, and I have major advice. I'm like, girl, let me reel you into some sense. But I always ask before I give anything, I'm like, okay, do you just want to vent right now, or do you want some feedback? And like when they say they want some feedback, that's the only time I give it, because if not, you're talking to someone that doesn't really care to hear it.
Yeah.
Right? And even like when they ask you for advice, it's like never making it about their experience, right? Like, don't be like, okay, so she did this. Remember when she did that, and how did that make you feel? But more like
generalizing it.
Yes,
Okay.
because then what's going to happen is that they're going to think of a story that happened in their life, and they're going to be like, oh my God, that's me. Like, that's going to be me in a few years, if that makes any sense.
And maybe they can detach their emotional baggage to that situation.
Yeah.
That might be viable.
That's
to do.
true.
That's interesting. I like that perspective.
Yeah, what would you tell your friend if they were in the same situation?
Yeah, what would you do? Everybody
like
has everybody gives great advice when it's not them, but now you're in that position. Oh my God, I can't do this. Well, you're emotionally attached. And
Exactly.
You always say it too.
It skews like,
Yeah, it does. I like that.
Yeah.
Man, I guess, like, it sounds like you're in a healthy relationship. You have some really great advice, and you've fought your way to this point. And I think that's important to understand.
Yeah.
Because you didn't just wake up with all this knowledge,
And guys, like, it's so funny because sometimes I'll just like jump on one of my mentorship calls. Like, people pay me to help them with their lives. And as we're doing our call, I'll tell them about a major dumb thing that I did in my life. And I remind them, I'm like, I'm not perfect. So like right now that you said, oh, it seems like you're in a very healthy relationship. Yes. But even in healthy relationships, there are times where you slip up, or there are times where you do something dumb. But what's important is about having the awareness of what I did. What's important is being able to catch yourself. Like I have this story. It happened like 3 weeks ago or something, but I've said it to so many people because I was just like I was like, how did I become that person? Like, I'm not that person anymore, but it can come up to anyone. So like, I'm going to say it quick, but my boyfriend was out all day. He was working. I'm doing my thing. We tend to do that a lot. Like, he does his thing, I do my thing. And I text him and I was like, babe, I'm starving. Bring me food, please, when you come back. He never replied to me, but in my head, I was like, he heard me. Like, he's going to do this. He comes home. Mind you, I'm starved because I didn't order food because I thought he was bringing me food. He comes home with a bouquet of flowers in one hand. Such a beautiful gesture, right? On a regular day. But what I saw was a cold burrito from Trader Joe's on the other hand. And I was like, you got me fucked up. Sorry.
That's okay.
But like, that was like my reaction because it was a cold burrito from Trader Joe's, like the kind that just sit there. And then when I looked at it closer, it was vegan. And I was just like,
how dare you?
So my mind was like, this is what I'm worth. I was like, this is like, what is this? But it was like, I associated the burrito with this thought of like my worth. And in my head, I was like, he just stepped in there quickly to get this when I'm starving. And it was an emotional reaction. So what happened after that is I was like, honestly, babe, like, are you kidding me? He's like, what are you talking about? He was so confused. He never saw the message. He never saw the message of the food. So he stepped into Trader Joe's to get me flowers. And then he got himself one of those little cold burritos. So he got me one just in case I wanted a snack. But he never saw that message. And when I go into WhatsApp, I verified that information. Right? But like,
Yeah, I'm glad.
Let me make sure just in case. Hold on. I'm not buying this. Hold on.
yeah, I'm like,
You didn't see it?
You
You didn't see that shit?
Yeah.
All right, let's see.
But what happened after was what was interesting because I was still like in my head, like, although he told me that, but I was like, really? Like, my feelings are hurt. So I go into my closet, I start folding laundry, and I'm just sitting there and I'm like, this can turn out two ways. You hold on to your ego and you have to continue being mad, which is what most people do. And they do it for days at a time. Or you recognize, babe, I took this so wrong and I want you to understand why. Like, I associated my worth to the burrito, which it sounds funny out loud, but
of course.
At that moment I had a decision to make. I was like, do I create distance between us? Because that's what happens. Every time you fight with your partner, you're disconnecting yourself. You're creating distance. Or do I go and connect myself and explain what I felt so that he could understand me instead of think she's a crazy bitch. Right? So I go to him and I was like, babe, first of all, I'm so sorry. Like, you came home with flowers and I didn't even regard the flowers. And I just came with such a vulnerable tone and I saw all my wrongs and I explained to him, this is what went on in my brain and it's so far from the truth. And like, I don't want us to have this space and this disconnect because of how I felt.
Right.
And that's it. And you fix your wrongs. And it was such a crazy moment. Like, my boyfriend was looking at me like, who is this monster? And I was looking at myself when I was in my closet. Like, how could I give him so much attitude? Mind you, in my house, we don't really scream or curse, but it's more of like the mannerism, which is very important for people to note too. Like, your tone of voice is everything. And that's something my boyfriend taught me. Because he would always tell me when we first started dating, Veronica, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And I was the queen of like, I could make you cry. I could make you cry without saying like much. And he taught me that. And he was like, I'm your partner. And like, if you don't get your tone in check, it's never going to work. And in 2 years, like, this man, and that's another thing, you got to be with someone that's willing to hold you accountable. Because every other man that I dated, still to this day, I feel like some of them, like, we're still good friends and like they have so much love for me because I do have a good heart and there's so much good in me. But like, why didn't you hold me accountable? Yeah. Why didn't you have enough self-respect to sit me down when I was acting up? And a lot of people that act up, it's because that's what they're wired to do.
So they know they're doing their best, and that's what it is.
Yes. Like, my boyfriend, when he sees my mom, and he doesn't speak Spanish, so he doesn't understand what we're saying, but like, my mom are talking and we're like, you know, like with our hands and being loud, and he's like, oh my God, I know where you get it from. He's like, sometimes you have this aggressive tone.
Yeah, maybe it's Colombian.
Colombian women.
Yeah. Colombianos are crazy, though.
And then he understands it. But like, imagine being German. It's like we're complete different cultures. Yeah, Germans are like very just calm, rational, chill.
Yeah, I'm very like, my girlfriend's Colombian too.
Oh God!
When I go to the family house, bro,
like
it's like
a mirror.
Yeah, hands moving, fucking yelling.
Yeah, you can't move without moving.
Yeah,
you can't talk.
If your hands ain't moving, you ain't saying shit.
Facts.
You said it. So yeah, it's kind of funny because
it just feels like my brain functions and the sentences process when my hands are. You know?
It's like in sync.
Because if I'm talking like this, it doesn't like, I don't know. But when I talk like this.
Oh no, I get where you're coming from.
But you know what's cool, guys? When you start working on yourself like that in your relationship, that you catch yourself when you do things like differently. You know, like, for example, when my boyfriend leaves a mess in the beginning of our relationship, I was like, honestly, like, I already told you this, babe. You know, this really bothers me. Can you please do this? Nag, nag, nag. No man wants to hear nagging. That's like a huge thing, girls. Like, if you're nagging your man, stop, because he's going to stop loving you because you're nagging him. But like, now, sometimes when he does stuff like that, I just look at him and I'm like, babe. And I look at the plate and like, he understands. And then he's just like, oh my God, like, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Like, thank you for just telling me like that. And then in my mind, I'm like, pat on the back, girl. Like, you're getting it.
The way I'm saying
it's repetition. Yeah. It's like showing up as that better version constantly because, I mean, change doesn't happen overnight, right? So there will be a time where you get triggered and maybe you act out in a way that you shouldn't. But then you got to remind yourself, is that who I want to be? Because who you want to be is a decision. It's a daily choice.
Daily choice, 100%.
Anyone could be anyone.
Yeah.
But it also, what I also love about this is that even he brought you the cold vegan burrito. And although you reacted in the way that you did, it also comes down to how your partner is able to hold his ground and know you enough to be like, all right, this bitch, she's just going through some shit.
Something's going on.
Yeah. But he was confused. So I actually wanted to ask you. So when that happened, what was he doing along, like, obviously flowers, cold burrito. Hey, I got you this, without seeing his stuff. You're there like, the burrito, what the fuck? So then how was he carrying himself? How did he control that situation?
His
until
reaction,
you then came?
Confused. He was so confused to what was going on. And girls, that's what happens with your man most of the time when you're acting up. Like, he's confused. Like, is this a dog with rabies? Like, what happened?
Especially when you know he's not doing anything wrong. Because when he's fucking up and then you're freaking out, he's obviously going to be like, ugh. But if he really is doing the best he can and he's doing a good job.
So because he holds his composure, instead of looking at me and saying, Veronica, what's wrong with you? You're crazy. And name calling me, he just holds his composure. Then it gives me, then I get to reflect quicker instead of saying, oh yeah, he's the bad one. He's treating me bad.
Because then he's just feeding the fire if he's going to.
He didn't give me a
lash
burrito
out.
and he called me a bitch.
There you
Or
go.
whatever.
So someone has to be the mature one in the relationship. And we can't both be the mature ones at the same time, all time, every day. So like when I drop the ball, he's willing to step
Pick it up.
And we do that all the time. And like when his feelings are hurt or when my feelings are hurt, we're willing to come to the other person. Like, okay, what's going on?
But he
Let's talk about it.
didn't this time. He was just kind of, he gave you space.
But he was understanding. He didn't lash back. He
No,
didn't
that's what I'm
escalate.
saying. But what happened for you? Did you just kind of say, well, I'm tripping out, and then you calmed down and then you went into him? Or
Yeah.
was he like trying to like,
No, it's self-awareness.
Right, okay,
Because
that's what I'm
like
saying.
when this is another thing. Like when you are in the midst of a heated moment, you're not thinking rationally. And if you're trying to resolve the problem while you're angry, good luck. It's not going to happen. And I always tell people this, when you have a big rise in emotion, you need to sit with it. You need to sit with that emotion, let it come up, release it, so that then you can think clearly,
Rationally.
process, and then make good decisions. But what happens is that we're all up in an emotion, and then we're like trying to find resolutions in the midst of being super angry or super sad, and like nothing makes sense. Of course it doesn't make sense because you're not looking at anything clearly. You're looking at it through the perspective of this one emotion. So I was hurt and angry. Imagine if I went to him while I was hurt and angry. I would have said a million things, which I did. I was like, is this what I'm worth?
yeah, right. But he could have said, well, I don't even like, well, that's the thing, because he didn't know.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this episode. If you enjoyed this content, please head over to Patreon where you'll be able to watch the full episode, get exclusive content, and watch all of our episodes at an earlier time.
Yeah, so Coffee Breakup started, being a short little break within your day, whether morning, afternoon, night, for you to get, your information, 30 minutes, nice and easy. But obviously, as we're expanding, more guests, more episodes, longer episodes, we want to make sure that we can put that in a little space for those who really want to enjoy those episodes. So head on over to Patreon where you can subscribe for a small little fee. It'll help us continue expanding our business and giving you that same content that you guys really want to follow us for. So again, thank you guys so much for everything. We couldn't have done it without you. But again, head on over to Patreon, check us out, see if it kind of tickles your fancy, and
We appreciate your support.
Yeah, we love you guys.
Thank you guys.
Later.
Ciao.